The government believes that people should have their beliefs and obligations owed to their communities in accordance with the principle of Ubuntu. The burden of proof in this debate is to prove whether Ubuntu will be beneficial to everyone in a society and will result in a better society. First argument: the adherence to Ubuntu will prevent the creation of discriminations. When people doesn't follow Ubuntu, it results in a poor social cohesion in which people will see other people as different from them. They don't have a sense of belongingness in a society, and they have a huge sense of mistrust because their set of values may not be the same as with the rest of the societies, and they see them as different. For example, Republicans see Democrats as different people because their set of values is not the same as in, for example, in Ubuntu. Democrats also see Republicans as very different, and what this will result essentially is a dysfunctional society in which there is very little trust and feeling of belongingness to each other. The problem with having less trust is that and feeling of belongingness is that it will excuse behaviors like racism and discrimination because they will not feel that society and everyone in it is a part of their own, right? So because society is so different, they do not feel like Republicans belong in the United States, or they don't feel like Republicans belong to the same society as they do, as Democrats do, for example. And it will create discrimination when Democrats are discriminating against Republicans because they don't see them as their own. So, with Ubuntu, there will scarcely be any discriminations and differentiations in society since everyone is being viewed as part of the society which they belong to. They don't believe that people that are poor from them, for example, are different people, but since they are part of the society, they help influence what they believe. They have the same values, for example, and they also shape as a part of this wider society. They would not discriminate against them because there is this sense of belongingness and trust because they're also part of the community. Here's a real example: the white community in a white majority state of Rhodesia is a very tight knit community with a very strong sense of Ubuntu, in the sense that everyone in the white community has their obligations owed to the community, for example. When you owe your obligations to the community, you will not see poor people as something that's different from you because that people is still in the community. And when you see there's poor people in the community, you will actually be incentivized to help them because that person is in your community, and therefore there's also a vested interest in you to help them because your obligations is owed to the community. So there are two impacts. Firstly, it will create a social safety net in which people may be helped because they see them as a part of society also, right? But secondly, it will result in less discrimination of people by preventing people that are different being castrated from society because again there is no sense of belongingness in a society without Ubuntu. Firstly, then there I have some weighing. The opposition may say that there will be no self-discovery in Ubuntu. Everyone will think the same way. Everyone will everyone will think the same way. Everyone will have their sense of obligations owed to the community. It's all about community, community, community. There's no space for you, right? Well, there will be no incentive to self-discover yourself if Ubuntu is prevalent because the beliefs and values of communities will still be present in the person, right? So, for example, a person from the Philippines has a very, very different gun culture to the United States. In the Philippines, using guns irresponsibly is not seen as your right to defend yourself from the government, but seen as a privilege. Therefore, uh, they do not have a culture in which they can use guns like the U.S. do. They can use gun freely. They can use guns freely. There's a big shame culture related to the usage of guns. Since Philippines people Filipinos have been so used to this gun culture in which there is great shame associated with its misuse, they don't feel any incentive to switch to a different culture that they have not been brought under and been essentially indoctrinated into them, right? So therefore, this argument is very questionable. It fails. But challenges to self-discovery also exist on both sides. If you want to self-discover, will have to do something that's very, very deviant. For example, trying drugs for the first time, having sex for the first time. These things are against what society is, and even in a society which doesn't have Ubuntu, it's still going to be seen as something that's very disruptive. So there will still be challenges. But on our side, when Ubuntu exists, at least there is a quick way for you to be happy just by following what the society wants you to do, which gives people not only incentive to be quickly happy, as society dictates, right? But also capacity, as there is already a set of values that people can affirm and achieve happiness with without having to go against society. At least you don't have to be to do some self-discovery to be happy. At least you don't have to know yourself to be happy. It's very quick and easy. Especially this is especially true, especially for poor people who does not have the psychological resources, or even just the time to consider what they really are. And by having already a predetermined set of what is good, of what is bad, of what makes you what should make you happy, what should make you a good life, it becomes very accessible for you, and you don't have to go through the lengthy and very and sometimes lengthy process and sometimes very hard process of self-discovery to just be happy, right? So firstly, and secondly, the opposition may say that it will actually allow oppression by the majority because now everyone is thinking the same thing. Now, here's some counter argument. Oppression will still exist on both sides, right? Exploitation will still exist even if society does not have Ubuntu. And since without Ubuntu, people still want to take advantage uh of other people, and people will actually have more incentive when there is no Ubuntu because they will not see other people that they are exploiting as their own, and therefore there is no moral deterrence from exploiting that person, right? So when you have Ubuntu, you're essentially exploiting and killing the hopes and dreams of your own society. And you feel bad because that person is also part of your own society. And remember that your obligations is primarily geared towards your community, which includes them and not just yourself. So there is barely any incentive to oppress people, even if all of your values are the same. Even if, for example, the authority which gives out those values are the same, if they see other people that are following those values also as their part of their society, then there is no incentive to take advantage of them. But actually, on the other side, there is a big incentive to take advantage of them because you don't see them as a society. Therefore, it's okay if we rob them of their future for our own gains because they're not part of our society too. It's us versus them. Remember. But there's also comes also an argument from social control, right? So essentially, what the opposition is trying to bring that social control is very big and tyrannical on our side, and very liberal on their side. Therefore, they win, right? But no, social control is needed on both sides, right? So even in a world without Ubuntu, or there is still crime, there is still something that needs to be curbed by social control. But the thing is, in a world with Ubuntu, we provide an inexpensive, less stressful method of social control. Crimes will still happen on both sides, right? But on our side, with Ubuntu, it will happen less because Ubuntu is a very because everyone is thinking the same thing, and they will think that they are part of their society. Therefore, they will most likely not be deviant. And Ubuntu is basically a very inexpensive and less stressful way because you don't have to fight against people who may not be with your ideal of what society should be. So it's very easy and very cheap method of social control and will result in less bloodshed when you try to enforce it. That is the case we are so far to propose.